All right, let's get right into it. You've got an American F-35 fighter jet shooting down an Iranian drone. And this isn't just anywhere, it's flying right over a U.S. aircraft carrier. Now, at first glance you might think, okay, a contained military incident. But, according to the analysis we're about to unpack, this was way more than just a simple shootdown. It looks like it was the opening move in a much bigger, much more dangerous game.
And that really brings us to the heart of the matter, the question that's going to drive this whole explainer. Was this just some minor, isolated thing? Or, as the source material we're looking at argues, was this the first shot fired in a brand new and maybe imminent conflict? Let's break down how they see it.
Okay, so first things first. We need to get a handle on the basic facts of what actually went down in this high-stakes showdown over the open sea.
So here's the rundown. A US F-35 takes out an Iranian drone that had parked itself right over an American carrier. But, and this is a really critical detail from the source material, it claims the drone successfully beamed its intelligence back before it got hit, and right after that, the US carrier changes course. So, you see, this wasn't just swatting a fly out of the sky. According to this analysis, it was an intelligence mission that actually succeeded.
So you gotta ask yourself, why on earth would Iran fly a single, lonely drone over one of the most heavily defended pieces of military hardware on the planet? Well, the source we're looking at argues this was no accident. It wasn't reckless. It was a deliberate, calculated, strategic test.
And there's a name for this kind of thing: water testing. It's a classic military tactic, really. You send in something cheap, something you don't mind losing, like a drone, to basically poke the bear. You're not trying to win a fight right then and there. Nah, you're trying to learn how your opponent fights. You want to see how fast they react, what kind of gear they bring to the table, and most importantly, where their weak spots might be.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the sheer imbalance of this whole encounter. I mean, look at it. On one side, you have a pretty cheap, mass-produced Iranian drone. And on the other, a multi-million-dollar F-35 stealth fighter firing a super expensive missile. The source actually compares this to what we saw in Yemen, where cheap Houthi drones were being taken out by multi-million-dollar Patriot missiles, a situation that just isn't sustainable long-term for the defenders. The goal for Iran here was simple: get data. The goal for the US? Protect a $20 billion aircraft carrier.
So, what kind of data was Iran supposedly fishing for? Well, according to this analysis, it's a whole checklist. They were testing American reaction speed. They were trying to identify what specific defenses would light up. They wanted to map out the carrier's entire security system layer by layer. And they were trying to get a feel for how far the US was willing to go in response to a provocation. All of this info, it would be pure gold if you were planning, say, a massive swarm attack with hundreds of drones in the future.
And this is a brilliant way to understand the concept. The source points to that time an Indian missile accidentally landed in Pakistan. Now, publicly, it was called a mistake, but this analysis suggests it was actually a perfect real-world test of Pakistan's air defense. How fast did they react? What did they do? The drone over the carrier is being framed in the exact same light. A test hidden inside a provocation. Okay, so we've looked at the alleged strategy, but what was the actual tactical outcome of this whole thing? And why does the source argue that even though Iran lost a drone, they actually scored a huge intelligence win?
I mean, this begs a really important question, one that gets right to the core of it. If an aircraft carrier is supposed to be one of the most defended places on Earth, how in the world did a lone drone get so close?
Well, according to the source, that drone just slipped through multiple layers of security. It supposedly bypassed the outer defenses, then the mid-range defenses, and even got past the close-in weapon systems, those super-fast Gatling guns that are the absolute last line of defense. And all that forced the US into a manual, last-ditch effort.
So here's the key takeaway, right? The carrier group's own automated built-in defense systems apparently failed to stop the threat. And that forced the command to scramble an F-35, which is, let's be honest, a massively overpowered and incredibly expensive tool for this particular job, just to manually take the drone out. If you're Iran and you're gathering intel, this was supposedly a jackpot.
And let's not forget what's at the center of all this: a $20 billion aircraft carrier. The source calls it America's heart, and it's a fitting description. It's a floating city, a symbol of American power, packed with thousands of people and dozens of the most advanced aircraft in the world. The stakes just couldn't be any higher.
But this single incident didn't just happen in a bubble. The response, according to the source, was immediate, it was huge, and it points to a dramatic escalation across the entire Middle East.
The analysis claims that in the wake of this, something like 40 emergency cargo flights took off from Fort Bliss, a huge U.S. military base in Texas, and they were all headed to one region.
And what were these planes carrying? Pretty much a full suite of America's most advanced defensive and offensive gear. We're talking Patriot air defense systems, sophisticated new radars, more drones, cruise missiles, all sorts of critical military units being rushed to bolster U.S. positions.
And look, this wasn't about reinforcing just one spot. This was a region-wide buildup. The source claims these assets are being fanned out across key allies: Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, Jordan, you name it. The message is clear. The entire Middle East is being put on high alert.
So, what does this all mean when you put it together? Let's get to the final, and frankly, the most startling conclusion from this entire analysis.
Here it is. This is the most provocative claim of all. The source argues that even though Iran sent the drone to poke the hornet's nest, it was the United States' action, shooting it down, that officially crossed a line. From this point of view, by using lethal force, America is the one who actually fired the first kinetic shot, kicking off a whole new phase of open conflict.
And the analysis wraps up with this incredibly blunt and urgent warning, leaving absolutely no room for misinterpretation. Fasten your seatbelts. This war is about to start at any moment.
Which, leaves us right here. According to this strategic analysis, the chessboard is set, and the first piece has been taken. The question now isn't if there will be a response, but what that response will look like, and who's going to make the next move.